Hey everyone, it's Alex from alexmaydrums.com, and on part 2 of the video series How to Mic Up a Drum Set, we're going to be taking a closer look at direct microphones. If you missed part 1, please feel free to check it out in the link below. Now, your direct microphones are primarily responsible for capturing a single sound source, whether it's a kick drum, a snare drum, cymbal, or a percussion element. Now, they're called direct microphones because they're usually right up on the source or pretty direct to it. The general rule of thumb with that is the closer you are to a sound source, the more of the direct signal you're picking up versus any of the room tone or the reverb or reflections. When you're recording drums, you'll see a lot of people use the Shure SM57s and SM58s, which are both essentially the same mic. 58s just have a windscreen on them, 57s don't. Reason for that being is they can both handle very high sound pressure levels, or SPLs, so if you point them right at a drum set, which is obviously very loud, they're not going to distort or anything like that. They're also very mid-range focused, which is where a lot of the frequency response from the snare drum and the toms come from. Also, they are very durable, so if your drummer hits them when they are playing, they're not going to break. You can literally hammer nails with these things, and they're not going to break. Now, for your kick drum, you'll see a lot of people using the Shure Beta 52, which is just a bigger version of the 57s. It's a little more suited for lower frequency response, so kick drum, you'll see some people use these on floor toms as well. Another popular choice is the AKG D112, which has a little bit different frequency response range. And then for toms, you'll also see people using the Sennheiser 421s, which are pretty popular choices for toms as well. Now, something you do want to be aware of when you're miking up anything within a Shure SM57, 58, or really any direct mic is what's called the proximity effect. Basically what that means is that the closer you get it to a sound source, the more exaggerated the bass frequencies become. This can be good or bad. It's kind of cool just to play around with it. It can be helpful on toms if they don't have a whole lot of low-end response or if they're tuned up really high because it can bring out a little bit more of those bass frequencies. But it is something to keep an eye on, or an ear on rather, just when you're miking up a kit, because you don't want too much bass buildup and for the tone to get muddy. Now we're going to start with the snare drum, but for all of these, the best thing you can do really is to use your ears. With microphones, especially the more sensitive ones, movement of just a couple inches can drastically affect the tone. So if you're pointed right at the center of the drum versus at the side, or if you've got your overhead microphones tilted a little bit one way or the other, it can really heavily influence what all is being picked up and what's going into the microphone. So again, use your ears. These are all just general guidelines that seem to work pretty well from my experience, but you can kind of play around and get the best results from them yourself. For snare top, point the mic right at the center where the stick hits to get the most attack, because pointing the microphone further towards the outside of the drum gives you more of the resonance and overtones. If you have an extra mic that you can place on the bottom of the snare drum, this mic will capture the snap and buzz of the snare wires, which can be a great thing to have available in the mixing stage. If you're using a 2-ply head like I am here, the top snare microphone isn't always going to pick up a whole lot of the snare wires underneath. This is where the bottom snare mic comes in handy because you can control the attack of the hit and the snap of the snares separately. Toms follow the same principle as your snare drum, where you get more attack when it's pointed towards the center and more of the resonance and ring out of the drum when pointed towards the outside. Now for your kick drum, there are many options that you can use. As a general rule, the closer you are to the batter head, the more attack from the beater you're going to get, and the further back you are, the more tone and overall boom of the kick will be captured. If you've got a microphone on the inside of the kick drum, make sure that you're aware of where the microphone is pointed at, because the closer you get to the batter head on the inside, the more sensitive it is to where the beater is going to be striking. Now you do want to be careful if you've got a double bass pedal, because with this, if you prioritize the microphone pointing at one of the beaters over the other, you're going to get a little weird response on there just because one is going to be a little louder and have a bit more different tonality to it. Now direct mics aren't limited to just the drums. You can use them to mic up cymbals and percussion elements as well. Just like the drums, however, the same principle applies. Just use your ears. Moving these around, especially on cymbals, can kind of alter the tonality of the pickup that's being captured from the sound source. It's not uncommon to see people mic up hi-hats, China cymbals, ride cymbals, or even individual crashes. It's just, again, more what you have available and what kind of control you want to give yourself in the mixing stage. So overall, your direct microphones are going to give you greater control in the mixing stage over individual elements. This can be especially helpful when you are mixing into overheads or room microphones or really any other microphone set, because you've got individual control over things like the snare drum, kick drum, toms, which you can process a little separately to get them to sit better in the mix. So we're going to be taking a look at the overhead and room microphones in the next couple videos, so be sure to stay tuned and keep an eye out for those. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.